The G-Wade Podcast with Deacon Dirty.
Yeah. Now tax season is upon us.
Yeah.
And so everybody's getting ready to getting their W-2s and the 1099s and getting ready to go get preparations. You mentioned something about filing the wrong status. Now, what does that mean when you're filing the wrong status?
Well, and that's a lot of times it happens with your do-it-yourselfers.
Gotcha.
And when we talk about filing the wrong status, is a common thing basically is people filing single when they're head of household. Just because single is defined from a tax standpoint as unmarried with no dependents.
That's what single is considered.
That's single considered.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Head of household is considered unmarried with claiming a dependent.
Okay.
So what happens is sometimes if people are not educated, they end up filing single because they were like, well, I'm not married, even though they have a child.
Okay.
So their whole thing is I'm not married. So they'll file single because they're not married, but not understand the tax law allows you to do head of household because you have a dependent.
Okay.
And so it makes a big difference because you get a specific amount of deductions based on your particular filing status.
Okay.
Single is about $12,400. Head of household is $18,650. So I'm short myself about $6,000 by not knowing. And so that's one of the ones. And then even married filing separate and married filing joint.
I was going to ask about that.
That's a big one too, because what happens is when you're married, you technically have two options: married filing separate or married filing joint.
Now, why do you have those two choices? I guess is it because the couple doesn't want their money to commingle?
And I'm glad you asked.
Now, I don't trust you.
Well, like I say, you do married filing separate because they give you that option. Because once again, we're married. I love you, but your taxes jacked up.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, I love you, but you don't pay no taxes.
So in other words, they're gonna be snatching all our money.
Yeah, and because once again, in the tax world, in the marriage, it ain't yours or mine no more.
Yeah,
it's ours.
Okay, right.
It's ours. And so we do separate because you might have a business which you paid no taxes in. I have a W-2, I paid taxes. So what happens is now when we file together, our tax bracket goes up. You didn't pay no taxes on after all expenses, say $75,000. We're gonna get crushed.
Yeah,
we're gonna end up owing money.
Gotcha.
And when we owe. You jacked us up.
Yeah,
but we owe.
Yeah.
So it's like, know what? I don't want to get in your mess. So what we don't, what the IRS don't tell us though, and most tax professionals, if you don't know, and most people don't know this, there's forms that's called injured spouse.
Injured
spouse, meaning that I'm injured by your situation. So if they're going to snatch your money or whatever, then you can do that, so you can file together. A lot of people don't want to file together because either you got back taxes, back child support, student loans. So it may be feasible, but the problem with that is that married filing separate is the worst filing status.
Why so?
The government actually penalized you for being married and not filing together. And
is that a setup?
I think, and I'm going to tell you why my logic behind that is because if we file together, what happens is we actually now boost our income. If we boost our income, we're in a higher tax bracket. We're in a higher tax bracket. We have to pay more taxes. So I'm thinking that's my theory behind it. I don't know if anybody ever answered that question. Why? But we do know married filing separate is the worst filing status. You get taxed at a higher tax rate. You get a what we call lower standard deduction.
Okay.
You disallowed for most credits that's out there: education credit, child tax credit. You don't get student loan interest. You can't take a loss on your rental property. So it's a bunch of different things that you get penalized for married filing separate. And this is why I tell people always talk to a tax professional before you do this and look at it both ways and see if it makes sense. Look at it and see if it makes sense, because what happens is married filing separate, when they doing it on their own, what people do is, and I ain't ratting on nobody, but what happens is,
names.
and which I tell, and this is why I'm transitioning people, because what happens is now, since married filing separate is the worst filing status, we got two options: married filing separate, married filing joint. I don't want to file with you.
Okay.
So what I do is I might file single and you might file head of household. Now it works out.
So you don't say married when you do it that way?
No. Now it works out better for you financially because we don't get penalized and all that.
Right.
But it's not the correct way.
Gotcha.
And that's a common practice, which now I'm starting to get a lot of people out of that when they come. And I tell them why. And the reason why I do this is not that I don't want you to get the maximum refund. And first of all, I tell you it's not right. And then secondly, what happens is you get more and more my clients specifically that because with me being in business 24 years, you might have had a son or a daughter that was 8 years old, but now they're college students.
Right.
You know, and so now what's happening, the school is asking for your paperwork. So now you submitting the paperwork saying I'm head of household or single, and they say, well, I thought you was married and your husband. This is incorrect. We need to amend this. And so now you got to go back and amend the taxes. And now when I got to change it, I got to pay all that extra money back that I shouldn't have got from the first place.
Wow.
You know, now if you go to court and they say, well, we need your tax papers for whatever reason. You're buying a house. We need your tax papers. And now the house people getting your tax papers and they're like, okay, I thought you and your husband was doing it alone, but you know, it's supposed to be verified. So you're having these issues. Gotcha. So what I'm trying to get people to do is really, if you have to bite the bullet, you know, right now, bite the bullet, because in the long run, it's going to cost you more. You know, and so that's when I say people filing the wrong filing statuses, you know, and a lot of times it's out of ignorance and a lot of times it's out of convenience.
Okay. Well, Tamiko has a question, but before you ask, let me ask you this real quick. Is there a category for when you were once married and now you're divorced? Are you considered single again?
Yes. If you're not claiming a dependent, then you're back to single.
You're back to single. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.